Howdy everyone, and welcome to Photo Edit Fridays. This is the fourth installment of the series, I believe, and I've just been having a good time sharing with you my editing style, and I hope that it helps you to figure out your own editing style. This week I've been out testing again the 800mm PF. I'm excited. I'm working on a review for the lens, and I thought that I would share one of the images that I shot. This perch in particular seemed to be really a popular one for birds at the wetlands. I saw swallows, red-winged blackbirds, and this common grackle land on the branch. And my instinct was to edit maybe the swallows or the red-winged blackbird, but common grackles are often overlooked as sort of a pest bird, but they really do have a beautiful iridescence, and I think that maybe we can edit this photo to bring out some of that beauty. So let's jump into it. It's going to be quite a similar editing process to some of my previous videos because I tend to edit a lot of photos in the same way. So again, take or leave from this editing process what you will. And by the way, I will be using Capture One, but these tips and techniques will apply no matter what photo editing software you use. So let's jump into it. I think for this one, I'm probably going to go with another 3x4 that is in a portrait orientation, and I think maybe there's a little bit on the bottom of this perch that I'm going to cut out. This is kind of your typical bird on a perch, bird on a stick photo, but I like the nice clean background. The 800 PF does a pretty fantastic job of just blowing out that background. But I like this, and just to kind of look at the grid, I think maybe let's get the bird's head in between the center and this rule of thirds line, and I'm happy with this. But when I look at this photo, I notice a few things. There is sort of a distracting stick in the back that I might use Photoshop to kind of clone out. I also think that there are a lot of shadows in the bird, and so I want to maybe bring up some of those shadows to really showcase how iridescent and beautiful this bird is. I also think it's got a really beautiful yellow eye, but yellow isn't really popping out as much as I think that it could. And I think we could maybe again do like a vignette. I love vignettes. I think we could do a vignette to sort of make the photo a little more dramatic. So let's start with a filled adjustment layer. I'm going to add my usual preset here, and just to remind everybody what it does in case you'd like to reproduce it yourself. I bring up the exposure 1/4 of a stop, and I add a tiny S-curve to the RGB channel, the red channel, and the green channel. I also bring down the whites and the blacks just a touch, and what I find is that this helps to add a little contrast to the image. It makes the image look a little clean. There's just something about it that just, the contrast cleans it up and makes it look less flat. So I do this to most of my images as a starting point, and then I'll reduce or increase the opacity of that effect as I see fit. But usually I end up keeping all or most of the adjustment there. The next thing I want to do is let's go ahead and actually let me bring up the exposure just a touch more for this, maybe up to about a 1/2 stop, because I'm going to create another filled adjustment layer, and this time I'm going to play with the colors a little bit. So if you've seen these videos before, you'll notice or you'll remember that I like to, when I'm playing with colors, just make sure that the photo looks good in black and white before I bring the colors back, so that I know that it looks good and it looks properly exposed. So I'm actually going to come back to the colors, and I'm going to create another adjustment layer for my vignette. And I'm going to rotate it to sort of match the direction of the bird and stretch out the outer edge so that there's a gradual change from the affected areas to the non-affected areas. You can again hit M on Capture One to see that. So let's rotate it a little bit and bring down the exposure to add some drama. And then as I do that, I'll increase the exposure on the on the base filled layer. And I think that looks pretty good. We might play with it a little more, but it looks pretty good. I also think that I'm going to create a subject mask, and Capture One has this really great feature that uses AI to just automatically identify the subject and put a mask on it. I know that Lightroom can do the same. It was actually one of those features that Lightroom had for a while that Capture One didn't, and it was making me really jealous. But I'm gonna just put the mask on the Grackle so that I can reduce the shadows just a touch. Now I've seen people go crazy and just bring the shadows way up. I don't want to do that. I think you do need some drama, some shadow, and I think reducing it all will make the image look weird, unnatural, and flat. So I'm just bringing it up a touch. So now I want to go back to my layer here and start to bring back some of the colors, starting with green. And I've been sort of in this mood lately to have desaturated greens and sort of darken them a touch. I think it's just looked nice in some of my recent photos, so I'm going to do the same here. I'm also going to bring up the yellow, and I see that there are some yellows in the background and there are some yellows on the bird, and so I don't want to increase the yellows too much or it's going to make the yellows just look too strong in the rest of the photo. So just to add a little bit more to the eye though, let's create another adjustment layer. This time we're going to use a draw mask, which lets you sort of brush on the adjustment layer. So you can see here if I hit that M key so you can verify where the mask is, the red area will be where the adjustments are. And so I'm going to just saturate maybe the yellows and oranges just a bit. Really still not doing too much, and that's okay. But just wanting to add just a little more saturation to that eye to make it really stand out. Okay, so now you notice in the fully saturated image, there are some purples, some greens, and maybe some cyans on the Grackle. And so I'm gonna start to saturate some of the colors, see if we can get some of these colors to pop. Maybe even a little bit of blue. Oh yeah, there's some blue. And normally I think blues can add a color cast from the sky and maybe not look so great. But on this particular image, I will actually saturate the blues. All right, let's look at the reds. Anything there? Not really. And do we get the cyans already? Now notice I'm not going crazy with the saturation and sliding it up all the way. We want this to be an accurate, at least I want this to be an accurate representation of what I was seeing out in the field. And I think oversaturating the images just looks fake. So I'm just gonna saturate them a little bit though, because that's what I was seeing when I was out there. And I think that, you know, your camera has a way of trying to capture the image in the most flat way possible. And your job when you're developing is to adjust the colors and the light to make the image look how it was when you saw it or how you felt when you saw it. So, or at least that's my goal. And I'm noticing here that I forgot to bring up oranges in my edit, so that branch was looking awfully grayscale, but I think this looks pretty good. I don't really need to do much noise reduction on this because the ISO's at 320, so I can also go to my Refine tab here and add just a touch of sharpening. And with that sharpening, I think the image is ready to go. So I'm gonna export this to Photoshop, do a little bit of work to clean up this stick in the background, and then I will put on the final image and show you before and after. So again, I hope you liked this video, and if you did, you found it useful and you think YouTube should show it to more people so that they can learn to develop their own editing style, don't forget to hit subscribe and to hit that thumbs up button. It really does help the channel. But again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in our next edition of Photo Edit Fridays. Take care. Hey, thanks for sticking around. Here are a few more shots that I really liked that just didn't really fit anywhere else in the video. Enjoy!